What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into as it's the Final Four of the NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament. And how about San Diego? For the first time in program history, they are going to the Final Four. How did they advance to the Final Four in the Stanford Regional? And how about Pitt advancing through the Wisconsin Regional as this is their second straight Final Four appearance? Also, Louisville and Texas advanced to the Final Four, but most of it was expected. Also, how about Julia Scoles and Betsi Flint winning the International Beach Volleyball Tournament this past weekend? Yes, there was some beach volleyball that happened. Also, we have a big-time coaching change as one big program managed to hire a big-time coach. You know what the deal is. Hand me a volleyball. Set the net. Because I'm about to start you up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made yourself into episode 172 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on. IE Sports Radio can be found on several different social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok by searching the user handle at IE Sports Radio. We also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go there, you'll see a Patreon link at the top, which starts at $5 a month. This will get you a shout out from all of our shows, especially this one, and higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment, with the one, the only Larry B. Because for the past 8 years and counting, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've been continuing to be by the fans and for the fans. And with your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all of that sports. Also, IE Sports Radio is available on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar. Also on the IE Sports Radio gift shop on the website, we have Christmas ornaments, which are made by our very own Angela Winstead, who basically painted IE Sports Radio logo on top of an ornament. Anyway, shout out to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel, Key to the Gate, Marcus Losgreat, and a donor that wishes to remain anonymous. Without any further delay, let's get on into it. So, everyone thinks we're going to be talking all NCAA women's volleyball. No, there was actually some beach volleyball that happened, as we actually had an international tournament that happened over the weekend, and this came from I'm probably going to butcher this incorrectly, NORCECA tournament. The NORCECA Continental Finals happened over the weekend, and most notably, Julia Scoles and Betsi Flint were the top seed representing the United States. And in top-seeded fashion, they were able to win the entire tournament, and they won, and best part is, they didn't even drop a set. Now, that's quite impressive just because, it's quite tough to go through a tournament without dropping a set. But this tournament was a little bit shorter, as there was only just Pool A, and then there were quarterfinals, and then there were semifinals, and then it went to finals. So, in Pool A, Julia Scoles and Betsi Flint won their first match 21-12 and 21-10. And then the quarterfinals, they managed to win that matchup 21-8, 21-8. Then the semifinals, they defeated Atenas Gutierrez and Abril Flores of Mexico 21-11 and 21-19 to advance to the said final. Then they managed to defeat Alanis Navas and Maria Gonzalez of Puerto Rico 21-16 and 21-9 or 21-19. So overall, it was a great tournament for Betsi Flint and Julia Scoles. Julia Scoles is obviously one of the more rising talents in the AVP. She is up for Rookie of the Year, and Betsi Flint also is an AVP, is also an AVP experienced player. So congratulations to those two. They really represented the U.S. quite well, and that's actually the last international beach tournament of the year, as we are winding down in the calendar year, and yeah, time flies when you're having fun on the beach. So it really is impressive. I also got to give a shout to Maria Gonzalez of Puerto Rico. She is a TCU player, and obviously this wasn't the result that she wanted. Her and her partner, Alanis Navas, but I'm trying to pronounce that correctly, but Alanis Navas and Maria Gonzalez, obviously it wasn't the result they were hoping for, but they were facing a very talented Julia Scoles. Remember, she came from the USC team that won back-to-back national championships, and they're also facing an experienced Betsi Flint, who obviously got some reps from the AVP. So overall, it was going to be a tough climb for the Puerto Rican pair, but for the U.S., they emerged victorious, and they did so without dropping a set. So good job to those two. And that's pretty much all I got in terms of beach volleyball news. So now, before I continue, for those that are listening live, you can listen live on Spreaker by following the Spreaker link that I tweeted out via the Setpoint Twitter account. My personal Twitter account and my Setpoint Twitter account are in the description of this show, along with updated timestamps once the live show goes off. But if you are listening live on Spreaker, hop on into the chat room and talk some volleyball with me. We have Adam Karnick and Mike Pat both in the chat room, both saying good evening to me. Thank you. I appreciate you two coming in. Also, big shout out to Mike Pat, who is expecting baby number 2 on the way, as he's expecting a boy. So congratulations to Mike Pat on the birth of his second child, and well wishes to you and your family. Hope everything goes well with you, and we hope to hear you back on the air soon. So congratulations, Mike Pat. All right, now let's get on into some NCAA women's volleyball action. So I'm going to recap the Sweet 16, and I'm also going to recap the Elite 8. Just a spoiler for the Elite 8, there were no sweeps. No team got swept. But in the Sweet 16, there were some sweeps that happened. There were 3 sweeps, which was kind of surprising, but not really. We'll start for the Sweet 16, we'll go from upper left bracket all the way down to lower right bracket. So we'll start with the Tennessee Regional Semifinals, starting with Ohio State versus Minnesota. Now, I got to actually see this matchup because, unlike the other regional semifinals and finals, this was televised on ESPN2, and I already gave my feelings on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on how I feel about the NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament not being nationally televised when it comes to some of their rounds. But I'll save that for pretty much before we head to a commercial break. But as for Ohio State, Minnesota, this was kind of an interesting match. You know, both these teams had met one another in Big Ten play. Minnesota won a match. Ohio State won a match. Ohio State won the first matchup in Minnesota via a sweep, and then Minnesota beat Ohio State in Columbus in 4 sets. Both these teams nearly had identical records. Both these teams finished 15-5 in the Big Ten. First set, Minnesota really got things going as they took the first set 25-22. It was very tight as they led most of the way. Ohio State made a little bit of a push, but Minnesota just took control and took the first set. Second set, it looked as if Minnesota was going to get off to another good start, but Ohio State finally woke up. They came to play. Emily Londot, remember her name? She came up big in this match, and she came up big in that second set. Ohio State took the second set 25-21. Third set was pretty much the same, as Ohio State actually got off to a hot start. Minnesota kind of cooled them down, but then Ohio State continued to stay hot, and they took the third set 25-21. And then in the fourth set, it was mostly all Ohio State, as Minnesota did all that they could to try to slow down the Buckeyes, but Ohio State was just scoring point after point after point. They were serving quite aggressive, and once again, they were getting great swings from Emily Londot, as Ohio State led by as many as 8, if I recall, and they eventually won the fourth set 25-19, as that win actually marks their first trip to the Elite Eight since 2004. So it's a good win for Ohio State, as Emily Londot led the way with a new career high 29 kills. She had only 4 errors, and she hit 500, and she chipped in 13 digs. Janasia Moore had 13 kills, Riley Rader 12 kills, Gabby Gonzalez 12 kills, Kylie Murr had 15 digs. Gabby Gonzalez was the one that put down the match-clinching kill, and Mac Pedraza also set a great game. She had 51 assists. She had 3 kills to chip along with her offensive production as well. So good job to Ohio State. However, for Minnesota, this does end the Hugh McCutcheon era, as Hugh McCutcheon is moving on, but he had a great and storied career with Minnesota and in terms of coaching volleyball. Minnesota was led by Taylor Landfair, who had 16 kills. Jenna Wenas and McKenna Wercher each had 9 kills. CeCe McGraw had 17 kills. Wenas had CeCe McGraw had 17 digs. Wenas had 14 digs. Melanie Schaffmaster had 3 kills and 39 assists. So overall for Minnesota, they got off to a hot start, but they kind of cooled off. They outblocked Ohio State 12-8, but they kind of got outdugged 53-49, and they, despite missing only 2 serves compared to Ohio State's 14, Minnesota still lost. They only hit 173, while Ohio State nearly hit 300. They hit 298. Yikes. So, obviously tough loss for Minnesota, but it's still a good season. I'll be talking about them on next week's show. Actually, on next week's show, as well as later on in the season. Or later on in this show. So, as for the other Texas Regional semifinal, we had Marquette versus Texas. I'm just going to speed through the first 2 sets. Texas just steamrolled Marquette in the first 2 sets, 25-14, 25-13. Long story short, Texas was serving up a storm. They could not be stopped at the service line, whether it was Logan Eggleston, whether it was Zoe Fleck, or any of those other players that were serving. They were just getting ace after ace and just making it so tough on Marquette's serve receive. The third set saw Marquette serve a little bit tougher, and they got their you-know-what together. They took that set 25-19, but then Texas restored order and took that fourth set with mostly ease, 25-17, never trailed in that set, as Texas was led by said Logan Eggleston, who had 15 kills. She hit 351. She's probably going to be the AVCA Player of the Year. That's going to be my guess. Maddie Skinner also chipped in 11 kills with a hitting percentage of .381. Asia O'Neal added 9 kills, and Molly Phillips chipped in 8 kills. As a team, Texas hit .343, and they outdug Marquette 46-41. They also outblocked them a lot to a little. I'm just kidding. They outblocked them 15-4, which that's a main concern right there. And they also outaced Marquette 10-3. They could have had fewer service errors, but they serve aggressively, so most of those serves, more often than not, will be going out. So, as for Marquette, they only hit 98 on the night, or on the day, so that's basically Marquette's day in a nutshell. They were led by Jenna Reitzma, who had 12 kills, while Hattie Bray, who I was impressed with when I saw this regional semifinal, she had 10 kills. She hit .357, which was impressive. Reitzma also chipped in 11 digs, which led the team in that category. Carly Scruback added 10 digs as well. Ella Foti had 5 kills and 2 service aces. But overall, Marquette knew this was going to be an uphill climb, and they knew it was going to be a long day if they fell behind early in that first set, as well as the second set. So overall, I give Marquette an E for effort, though, but I kind of figured this was going to be a win for Texas. But good effort for Marquette taking a set off of Texas, and Texas even led by as many, or Marquette even led by as many as 8 against Texas. And that's uncharted waters right there for Texas. They never trail by that much, and they never struggle in serve-receive like they did against Marquette. So as for the Stanford bracket, jumping down over to the Stanford regional semifinals, no surprise, well, actually some surprise. San Diego swept Kentucky. I'm not going to really recap this matchup. I was very surprised that Stanford swept Kentucky. I know Kentucky is a younger team compared to San Diego's experience, but I think what really helped San Diego out was that they had such a tough, challenging first 2 matches in Northern Colorado and Washington State, and I think that's what kind of gave them the edge. Now, obviously, Kentucky, they faced Loyola of Chicago and Western Kentucky, but for Kentucky, those 2 opponents, Loyola of Chicago, they didn't really have too many standout wins, and then Western Kentucky, they obviously won their conference tournament, or no, they placed second in their conference tournament, and they had a few wins here and there, but they didn't have the big breakout wins that the Hilltoppers had. So I would say that, to me, San Diego got challenged in the first 2 rounds better than Kentucky did. And then as for the other Stanford regional semifinal, Stanford swept Houston. Houston got off to a good start, and it was looking really good for the Cougars to take the first set. But then Stanford, being as talented as they are, they got monster game from Kendall Kipp. They also got contributions from Elia Rubin and Katie Baird and Sammy Francis. Kami Minor was setting up a storm, as losing that set by 2 points for Houston was a momentum killer. If they win that first set, it's a whole new ball game, whole new perspective, and they're feeling good after being up 1-0. Sadly, that is not the case, as Stanford wound up winning the next 2 sets, and they wound up winning their way into the Stanford Regional Final. So going over to the Wisconsin regional semifinal, we had Florida taking on Pitt. First 2 sets, they were tight early on, but then Pitt finally kicked it into high gear. They won those 2 sets 25-20 and 25-21. And overall, it was looking really good for Pitt. And then the third set, Florida woke up. I get it. Florida is very inexperienced. I don't even think they have... I don't know how many players they had with NCAA tournament experience from last year. But all I can tell you is that they did not look comfortable in those first 2 sets. The third set, they got down. They adapted well to Pitt's game, as they won that third set quite handily, 25-17. Only 1 lead change, and overall, Florida played much better. I think as the game progressed, Florida started picking up their gameplay. Fourth set, while Pitt did not trail in that set, it was still pretty tight. Florida was not going to go down without a fight, and Pitt, to me, they were able to hold off Florida. The fourth set was a lot closer than expected, 25-22, but for Pitt, they did not trail any way, shape, or form in that set, as they advanced to the Elite Eight for the third straight year. My apologies. I thought it was second straight year, but third straight year. Pitt was led by Courtney Bazario, who had 19 kills, while Serena Gray and Valeria Vasquez Gomez each had 9 kills. Chiamaka Nwokolo each had 8 kills, and Cam Ennis chipped in 6. As a team, Pitt hit 224, which you're gonna be surprised at some of Florida's stats. As Florida, on the other hand, hit 304. Now, when you hit 304 compared to 224, that team that hit 304 normally wins. However, Pitt just had the upper hand in some of the other categories. That being, they missed fewer serves than Florida, as Florida missed 11 serves compared to Pitt's 2, and Pitt slightly out-aced Florida 4-3, which was kind of impressive. As for the digs, Florida outdug Pitt 55-49, as Florida was led by Marina Markova, who had 15 kills. She hit 400. Merritt Beeson chipped in 13 kills, and Sylvia Victoria chipped in 10 kills as well. Also, Brie Kelly added 9 kills. So their young talent stepped up. Alexis Stuckey had 45 assists, and she had 5 kills. Ellie McKissock had 17 digs to lead the team in that department. And once again, Florida hit 304. They outblocked Pitt 10-7, but the service errors kind of hurt them. So overall, Florida will be back on this stage, but I just am a little surprised that Florida, with those stats, lost this game. But it is what it is. Pitt will take the win regardless. As for the other Wisconsin regional semifinal, we had Wisconsin playing Penn State. So this is the third meeting between these two teams. Wisconsin won the first two meetings against Penn State, won the first meeting in Badger Fieldhouse, aka Wisconsin Fieldhouse. They swept Penn State the first go-around, then the second go-around at Rec Hall at Penn State. Wisconsin had to outlast Penn State. This time around, this match was being played at Wisconsin Fieldhouse. Wisconsin took the first two sets, 25-21, 25-19, and the second set was closer than that final score dictates, as it was basically just a fight to the finish. It's just that Wisconsin got on a serving run or scoring run. Basically, Wisconsin, when you give Wisconsin 1 point, they're more often than not going to rip off 3 points and so on and so forth. And set 3, it was looking like Wisconsin was going to go for the throat. But then Penn State, to their credit, they came up big. They won that third set 25-23. Then the fourth set, Penn State got off to a hot start. They mainly led throughout the most part. Wisconsin did come back to take a lead, but then Penn State slammed the door shut on Wisconsin. Took the fourth set 25-20. Then the fifth set, it was mostly Wisconsin. Wisconsin got off to a hot start. They led 4-1, and then the lead just kept growing and growing. And unfortunately, Penn State just did not have that big-time hitter that could get that kill to break the Wisconsin scoring run. As Wisconsin took that fifth set 15-8, Wisconsin was led by Anna Smrek and Sarah Franklin, each having 13 kills. Devin Robinson added 11 kills. Wisconsin only hit 182, but there were a lot of digs and there were some blocks that happened as well. Speaking of blocks, Wisconsin outblocked Penn State, get this, 23-9. Yeah, Penn State's not winning that matchup. I know Wisconsin has some tall players on the team, and they block really well, such as Danielle Hart and Anna Smrek. But to get blocked by quite a bit, in a landslide, mind you, yeah, you're not winning a whole lot of matches. I'll give Penn State this. They outdug Wisconsin 63-59, and they out-aced Wisconsin 10-4, and they even had a better service ace versus service error ratio. However, what killed Penn State was hitting 56 in the match. 56. In the second set, they hit -64. Fourth set, they hit 86. Set 1, they hit 83. Their best set in terms of hitting came in the third set, hitting 167. And then set 5, they hit 0, as they had 5 kills and 5 hitting errors. Once again, they just could not have that big-time pin hitter to, break them out of certain Wisconsin scoring runs. And the craziest thing is that Penn State had 7 more kills than Wisconsin, as they were led by Kashana Williams, who had 14 kills. But I hate to rag on Kashana, because she was a former player that I covered back when she was at Long Beach State. She had 15 hitting errors, which is not going to get the job done. Katie Clark was Penn State's most efficient hitter, having 13 kills and hitting .296. Zoe Weatherington added 11 kills, but she had 12 hitting errors and hit -31. Ugh. On the stat sheet right here, Penn State had 5 players that hit in the negatives. Now, obviously, one of the players had only 1 attempt, and then Alicia only had 3 attempts, as she was the setter, but that's still kind of cringe. It's even more cringe to see more than 10 hitting errors in a match from one player. Big yikes right there. Alasia had 4 service aces to go along with her 48 assists and 7 digs. Maddie Blinovich added 17 digs, which led Penn State in that department. Cassie Kuershen had 10 digs as well for Penn State. and Gillian Grimes had 9 digs. So that was how Penn State lost to 3 teams, or 3 times to 1 team. I'll give them the E for effort. They really performed well in Katie Schumacher-Colley's first year. But they just fell short to big bad Wisconsin, which, I can't blame them for losing. It was going to be tough to beat that team on the road. But again, Penn State really had grown up. I'll talk about them next week. As for the Louisville regional semifinals, so this was the big upset of the day. And yes, I spoiled it. Oregon beat Nebraska. So the first set, Oregon got off to one of the worst starts it had, and they got stomped on in the first set, 25-14. It was that painful of a start for Oregon. It made me wonder, is Oregon kind of smoke and mirrors, considering they're not playing at Matthew Knight Arena? No. Oregon actually managed to prove themselves very nicely in the second set. They did have to outlast some Nebraska comebacks and whatnot, but Oregon took the second set 26-24. Third set was also tight, mostly with Nebraska leading, as they took the third set 25-22. And then the fourth set, Oregon had the lead late in the set. Nebraska came back, and they had match point multiple times, but to Oregon's credit, they came back and tied it up at 30-30, and then they got 2 straight kills, with the latter coming from Brooke Nuneviller. So they won the fourth set 32-30. There were 20 ties in that fourth set. That is basically NCAA volleyball right there. Oregon needed to force that fifth set. They knew their season was on the line, and they knew they needed to pull off some duck magic if they want to advance to the Elite Eight. And then the fifth set, Oregon got off to a much hotter start. They at one point led 14. I want to say they led it 14-5, and then Nebraska came slightly roaring back, just like they kind of did in the NCAA tournament finals match last year. But ultimately, Oregon won the fifth set 15-11. As Oregon was led by Mimi Collier, and yes, it's pronounced Collier, not Collier, I apologize. Mimi Collier led the way with 26 kills. Brooke Nuneviller had 16 kills, but she had 11 hitting errors. And then Morgan Lewis, she also came big for Oregon. She had a whopping 13 kills as well. As Georgia Murphy led Oregon in digs with 21, Hannah Pukis chipped in 20 digs. Nuneviller had 15 digs, and Collier had 13 digs. As a team, Oregon hit 217 compared to Nebraska's 199. Now, I was also informed that Nebraska was missing a few players, and some of their players weren't 100% due to them being sick and due to some injuries, but it's unfortunate. That's kind of the way the ball bounces. And also, Nebraska had a lot of young, inexperienced talent. They had mostly sophomores on this team. They did have some notable big-time players, but it was mainly sophomores, as leading the way was Maya de los Reyes, who had 16 kills. She hit 324, which was nice. Allie Batenhorst had 15 kills. Whitney Launstein had 12 kills. Batenhorst had 12 digs. Taylor Williams had 18 digs. There are 2 Georgia Murphys. I think that might be an error in the box score. Anyway, Daly McSeelan had 15 digs, and Elise Ferreira added 12 digs. In terms of the service error battle, Nebraska had 7 service aces compared to Oregon's 4, and Oregon got dominated in the service error department, and they also got outblocked 14-7, but outdigging them 83-78 and holding Nebraska under 200 is quite something. So that's pretty much that for the Sweet 16. Jumping on over to the Elite 8, or the regional finals. I'm still going to call it the Elite 8. I don't care what anyone says. I'm calling it the Elite 8. Fight me if you think otherwise. Anyway, we'll start in chronological order. In other words, we'll start on which event happened first. So, this happened on Saturday. Unfortunately, I could not watch any of these regional finals, which made me sad-faced, just because I don't have ESPNU, which sucks, but I know I'm not made of money, so please don't encourage me to buy ESPNU. I don't need ESPNU for the year-round season. I'll be fine, y'all. Anyway, so Louisville versus Oregon. First set, Oregon was actually leading for a good chunk of the set. Then Louisville kind of turned the tides, and missing so many serves was kind of key for Louisville's comeback, as Oregon missed quite a bit of number of serves, as that eventually led to Louisville taking the first set 25-23. Then the second set, Oregon responded in another close fashion, winning the second set 25-23. And then the third set, Oregon dominated that third set. They got off to such a fast start, and they never looked back. They dominated the third set, winning 25-13. And just like that, Oregon's up 2-1, and everyone's thinking Oregon is going to advance to the Final Four. Last time Oregon advanced to the Final Four, 2012, when they wound up making the final that year. Unfortunately for them, Louisville had other plans, as this was the tightest of the 5 sets. Yes, this match went 5 sets, and Louisville outlasted Oregon in the 5th set, winning 27-25. And the KFC Yum Center obviously must have been jubilant with Louisville fans. And then the 5th set, Louisville, it was tight early on, and then Louisville just started pulling away, and they distanced themselves so much. It was just the final score obviously is very indicative, 15-6. It was tight early on, to Oregon's credit, but then Louisville just started ripping point after point after point. They just could not slow down. Louisville was led by at.but, who had 17 kills. Now, she came up big. Obviously, she hasn't played the whole season, as she has been battling injuries, and at first she wasn't 100%, but now it looks like she is. Like, back in the regular season, she was not 100%, and obviously missing time really hurt her, but now she is back, and she is a lean, mean killing machine for Louisville. Sorry about that. It looks like the box scores got really messed up here. But either way, Louisville hit 217, which I have mixed feelings about. But what mattered most was that they had a hitting percentage of .350 in that 5th set, which was darn right impressive. So good work to Louisville, as they came up big when it truly mattered, and they didn't panic after facing a tight 4th set in set 4 against Oregon. And then the 5th set, they got off to a hot start, and they managed to put away Oregon. Oregon was led by Mimi Collier, who had 17 kills, while Brooke Nunaviller had 15 kills, Morgan Lewis had 13 kills, and Carson Bacon chipped in 10 kills. Pukis also had 12 digs to go along with her 50 assists, while Nunaviller led the team in digs with 16. Georgia Murphy had 12 digs. So overall, it's a tough loss for Oregon, but they really represented the Pac-12 well. I don't think anyone predicted Oregon making it to the Elite Eight, especially facing that tough Nebraska team. But you have to give credit to what's-his-face, Matt Ulmer. His team was battle-tested in those 5-set matches, which also included early in the year when they played Long Beach State. But overall, their fire kind of withered against Louisville. But it was still a fantastic season for the Ducks, though. And obviously, replacing Brooke Nunaviller isn't going to be easy. But when you've got Morgan Lewis and Mimi Collier, you're in good shape. Jumping on over to the next regional final, we had Texas versus Ohio State in the Texas regional final. So the first set, it was close early on a little bit, but Texas really heated up. They turned on the heat against Ohio State. They won the first set 25-18. Second set was mostly Ohio State, as they didn't really trail all that much, and it was hardly tied, as Ohio State won the second set 25-21. Third set was all Texas. Long story short, Texas just blitzed Ohio State in the third set, winning 25-13. And then the fourth set, it looked as if it was going to go to a fifth set, but then Texas was like, nah, we don't need a fifth set. Texas was up 21-20 and outscored their opponent 4-1 as Texas wound up winning the fourth set 25-21 to advance to the Final Four. So Texas was led by Logan Eggleston, who had 20 kills, and she also had 9 digs to go along with her 2 service aces. Maddie Skinner chipped in 13 digs. And that was pretty much that in terms of their notable kill leaders, as they had 51 kills to Ohio State's 42. Texas hit 258 compared to Ohio State's 137, and outdug Ohio State 49-43. Despite Ohio State posting a whopping 11 blocks, Texas outblocked them 17.5-11, as they also out-aced them 6-5 and had a better service ace-to-service error ratio. Ohio State was led by Emily Londot, who had 14 digs. Gabby Gonzalez added 10 digs. Emily Londot had 14 kills, and she had 7 digs. Gabby Gonzalez had 10 kills. Janasia Moore had 9 kills. Kylie Murr had 12 digs. Mac Pedraza had 10 digs to go along with her 36 assists. Unfortunately, it was not enough for Ohio State, but despite this was a fantastic season for them. So good job to Ohio State. They knew this was going to be a tough matchup. Obviously, it's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season, but when you're Texas and you have lots of talent across the board, you're not going to be worried a whole lot. All right, now for the last two. So these last two, spoiler alert, they were upsets, as we had Pitt upsetting Wisconsin. So first set, Pitt was leading by as many as 7. It was looking like Pitt was going to set the tone early, but credit Wisconsin, they chipped away at that lead, and they managed to break through and steal that first set 25-23. Now, most teams, when they lose a first set on the road, they can either wither and just poop the bed, or they can either brush themselves off the mat and get back at it. As the second set, that's what Pitt did. They picked themselves off the mat and brushed themselves off, and they meant business in the second set. They only trailed once, and there weren't too many ties, as Pitt won the second set 25-21. Third set was much more closer, as there were 10 ties. I think it might have been the closest of the 4, and indeed it was, as Pitt won the third set 25-21. Fourth set, Wisconsin had no problems whatsoever for the most part. They won the fourth set 25-19. Then the fifth set, it was fairly tight. Pitt jumped out to a lead, and then Wisconsin came roaring back, and then once the first team hit 10, it was just a battle. It was just trading blows. But eventually, Pitt was able to score the last 2 points, with the latter coming from Courtney Vazario off of a kill, which Wisconsin was unable to retract, as Pitt took the fifth set 15-13, advancing to their second straight Final Four and second in team history, which was downright impressive. Courtney Vazario led the way in terms of kills with 18, while Chiamaka Nwokolo had 12 kills. Valeria Vasquez-Gomez had 11 kills, while Cam Ennis and Serena Gray each had 9 kills. Serena Gray probably had her revenge game, as she obviously played against Wisconsin back when she played for Penn State. So obviously I think she might have been a key X factor for the Panthers. Pitt also had 88 digs, despite Wisconsin having 92. I want to say that 88 digs were the most Pitt has had in a postseason, as Valeria Vasquez-Gomez led that department with 22, while Emmy Kilka and Rachel Fairbanks each had 16, and then Lexis Akio had 10 digs. Pitt hit 217 compared to Wisconsin's 266, which is kind of surprising, but it was quite impressive, and Pitt's 6-2 offense worked to wonders. Rachel Fairbanks also had 7 kills to go along with her 37 assists, while Akio had 16 assists to go along with those 10 digs. So Pitt really performed well, and I was quite impressed by them. I was wondering if Rachel Fairbanks was going to get a triple-double, but unfortunately she didn't. But then again, Pitt was facing Wisconsin, which has some pretty darn tall players, as you had to deal with the likes of, what's their face? Danielle Hart, and then you also had Anna Smrek. And it looks like my printer had some printing errors, as it looks like I hate to say this, but it looks like my printer had some printing errors on printing out some of these names, which is disappointing if you ask me, except for the last one. But overall, it's a tough loss for Wisconsin, as it was quite the tough loss for them on their home floor. And keep in mind, Wisconsin was the reigning NCAA Women's Volleyball champion, but unfortunately for them, their season came to an end. Regardless, they had a great championship run, and remember, most people were doubting Wisconsin in the early in the season. They had losses to Baylor, they had a loss to Florida, they lost early in the Battle of the Border to Minnesota. Everyone was saying, this isn't your normal Wisconsin team from last year. Blah, 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 blah. No. I had no doubt Wisconsin was going to still be the dominant team that it is. It was just all about them just starting to put it together. And they put it together quite nicely after that loss to Minnesota. They even had some statement wins, including beating Nebraska both times, including sweeping Nebraska the first go-around. And they rose through a lot of adversity as well. So, for me, Wisconsin really impressed this season. And then the last regional final, which did not have any printing errors, thank the heavens it didn't, was San Diego versus Stanford at Stanford. So Stanford took the first set 25-19. They didn't really trail all that much. They didn't have too many problems. San Diego got off to a 3-1 lead, and that was it. That's all you need to know. Stanford took control the rest of the way, and it was all thanks to the strong arm of Kendall Kipp, but more on that later. So second set, San Diego started playing better. It was fairly tight through the early parts of the first set, or in the second set, but then San Diego really kicked it into overdrive, though Stanford wasn't too far off, as San Diego took the second set 25-22. Third set, Stanford restored a little bit of order as they took that third set 25-19. Fourth set was fairly tight. San Diego was leading most of the way, but Stanford was right on their coattails. And eventually San Diego slammed the door shut on Stanford in that fourth set, 25-23. Then it went to a fifth set. Early on, it was San Diego leading most of the way, but then Stanford tied it up at 9-9, and that was when I was thinking, uh-oh. That's when I was thinking Kendall Kipp was going to go into takeover mode. Nope. San Diego actually managed to I wouldn't say slow her down, but they managed to work around her as San Diego finished the match in that fifth set on a 6-0 run, winning the fifth set 15-9 and advancing to their first ever Final Four, as Katie Lukes led the way with 20 kills despite 10 hitting errors. Grace Froling and Brianna Edwards each had 18 kills. Layla Blackwell chipped in 14 kills. She hit 500, by the way, and she had 0 hitting errors on 24 swings. Edwards hit 293. Froling hit 308. As a team, San Diego hit 283 compared to Stanford's 253. San Diego also outdug Stanford 58-55, despite getting outblocked 16-13, and despite not having the best service ace to service error ratio compared to Stanford's. San Diego held on, and they came up big when it truly mattered. When it was tied 9-9, most teams that were facing Stanford would probably just roll over and just watch Kendall Kipp take over and just see your season evaporate. But for San Diego, they had some offensive firepower within that team. They had 4 players in double digits in terms of kills, and it was basically their big 4. This is their 4-headed monster. It's not just one player stepping up. And credit to Gabby Blossom as well. She had 64 assists while chipping in 7 digs. Annie Benbow led that category with 18, while Maddie Allen, the BYU transfer, had 12 digs, and Lukes had 11. Stanford was led by Kendall Kipp, who had 24 kills, which was very impressive. Aaliyah Rubin had 13 kills and 10 digs. Katie Baird had 10 kills and 7 digs, as Alina Ogilvy had 22 digs, and Cami Minor had 9 digs to go along with her 52 assists and her 3 kills. Unfortunately, it was not enough for Stanford, as they just fell short in the Elite 8. Obviously, it's tough, but I think the last time San Diego and Stanford faced one another, I want to say San Diego won in 5, and that came via a reverse sweep. And how I know this, I had a friend that played on Stanford, and I think it was the first win for the Toreros at Maples Pavilion. Now, this is most likely the second win in at Maples Pavilion for San Diego, and we're not counting the previous match against Kentucky. So that was huge for San Diego, winning that regional final, as the Final Four consists of Texas and San Diego, and Louisville and Pitt. Now, for Louisville and Pitt, this is their second straight year in the Final Four, as both these teams made the Final Four last year, and they both lost to said Big Ten teams, as basically Louisville lost in 5 to the eventual champion Wisconsin, and then Pitt lost to the runner-up Nebraska in 4 sets. So it was quite impressive. It's quite impressive to see those two back on the big stage. And what's even better is that the ACC will have an NCAA Women's Volleyball finalist regardless of who moves on between Pitt and Louisville. So it just goes to show that the ACC has come a long way, and that's quite impressive. And both Louisville and Pitt are looking for their first ever NCAA Women's Volleyball Championship, and both are long yearning for this moment. They both are waiting to have this moment for some time. So it's quite impressive if you ask me. And this is a big time here. This is probably the biggest thing right here. For the first time ever, the national semifinals, according to NCAA Women's Volleyball, the national semifinals will not include a team from the Pac-12 or the Big Ten Conference. That's darn right crazy right there. Because obviously Stanford and Oregon were out, and then Ohio State and Wisconsin were out. So crazy if you ask me. And I also have to make a confession. I thought this was the first time since 2002 that we were not going to see a Big Ten team in the NCAA Women's Volleyball semifinals. That's not quite correct. Nebraska, which wound up winning the national championship in 2006, was not in the Big Ten that year. They were in the Big 12. So I felt foolish for tweeting that out, and I'm like, uh-oh. I eventually made a correction post saying, that's not true. I forgot. I didn't know Nebraska was in the Big 12 that year. I didn't know Nebraska was in the Big 12 all the way up to 2011. I'm sorry. I wasn't. I should have maybe looked a little bit more carefully, but what can you do? So you live and learn, y'all. So my bad, everybody. But that is that for recapping everything. I forgot to talk about San Diego. And that's actually a perfect segue to go into my team of the week. So my team of the week for the second week of the NCAA tournament, as well as week 16, is San Diego. So, like I said, this is the Toreros' first ever Final Four appearance, as they beat Stanford in the regional final, and they also swept Kentucky. Now, the reason why I gave them the set point team of the week honor is because I thought their win over Stanford was much more impressive than Pitt's win. Now, obviously, Pitt had a very impressive win. They lost the first set, won the next two, got swamped in the fourth set, and then narrowly escaped in the fifth set. But for me, San Diego's 5-set win consisted of them losing the first set, bouncing back in the second set, losing the third set, and narrowly winning in the fourth set. And they had a lot. There was the last rally, the last point of that set was very impressive. San Diego was just flying all over the place when it came to getting the ball, and it was just very impressive. And then that fifth set, they led most of the way. Stanford came back to tie it at 9-9, and San Diego closed out on a 6-0 run. And the fact that San Diego came back from a 2-1 deficit to win the match on the road in Stanford at Maples Pavilion is very impressive. That's why I gave them Team of the Week honor. I said on Twitter, I don't know who I'm going to give Team of the Week to when it comes to Louisville and Pitt, but I gave the honor ultimately to Stanford. I'll give Pitt the runner-up or the honorable mention just because they had quite the impressive win over Wisconsin. The Panthers definitely deserve credit, considering most people had many questions for them, especially after that first set. But I said it best. I said you don't need to worry about the first match, or not the first set, the first match lost. You'll be fine. Just it's better to lose now than to lose when it truly matters. So overall, congratulations to San Diego as their road to their first ever national championship continues in the Final Four. But in order to get to the final, they have to take down the very talented Texas team. So before we head on into a commercial break, we have a couple things to go over. So we have the stat stuffers. And we don't have too many stat stuffers as we only have like 4, with 3 of them being player-wise. So we'll start off with Kashana Williams of Penn State. She surpassed 1,500 kills last week for Penn State, as most of the kills did come from Long Beach State, but she was able to surpass 1,500 last week for Penn State. So congratulations to her. I'm fairly certain this is her last year because I saw she was a graduate player, and it was an honor covering her back at Long Beach State. She was quite the character when I interviewed her, but she was also a very talented player as well. Also, we have Logan Eggleston of Texas setting a Big 12 record in terms of number of service aces, as she surpassed 206 in counting. So Logan Eggleston is probably one of the best servers I've seen, and I hope she plays for Team USA. Please, Team USA, please, please, please have her on the team and have her serve quite a bit, because if you don't, I'm going to be sad face. But I digress. Speaking of the University of Texas, Texas surpassed an attendance record in its home gymnasium, the Gregory Gymnasium, of 5,344. So good on the Longhorns. Texas loves to travel well, so I've heard. And then the last stat stuffer we have is Katie Baird, who became the 22nd player in Stanford history to surpass 1,000 kills. And she's bound to have more kills down the road as she is coming back for her 5th year along with Kendall Kipp. So congratulations to Katie Baird as she was able to make history for Stanford. All right, so that's that for your stat stuffers. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. And here's my thing. I wouldn't call this a rant, but my thing is, for the regional finals, why didn't you televise at least one? Why did you not televise at least one national regional semifinal or regional final? You televised the regional semifinals in Minnesota, Ohio State, and Texas Marquette, but you didn't nationally televise one regional final. You could have given us at least the Texas-Ohio State regional final, but you didn't. I understand there was NCAA basketball happening, there was Army-Navy going on, and there was probably other events. There was some UFC going on as well. But it's like, I wonder what were the ratings on ESPNU from those volleyball matches compared to the ratings of some of these other events that happen. Now, obviously, UFC is in its own category, and I'm not trying to hate on NCAA men's or women's basketball, or I'm not trying to hate on UFC or the Army-Navy match, but I'm just saying that we could have at least gotten one nationally televised regional final. Put it on ESPN3, please. Why do you gotta do this to me, ESPN? I don't have ESPNU. I know, first world problems. But I want to see NCAA Women's Volleyball Regional Championship match on Saturday, but we just couldn't see it. So I really want to see the numbers that the volleyball matches had on ESPNU versus some of the numbers that were played on Saturday when it came to the events that were happening at certain times of the day. Like, I really want to know some of the numbers. And if the women's volleyball numbers surpassed the other numbers or the other sporting events numbers on national television, ESPN has a problem, and they are not nationally televising some of the more important volleyball matches. Because we had 3 matches go 5 sets. And for those that didn't have ESPNU, I feel bad for it, as well as myself. So overall, I wish ESPN would just fix their you-know-what when it comes to, and just put at least one. At least one. I don't care which one it was. I don't care if it was the one-sided one, well, the one that went 4, or any of the others. Just please give us a regional championship nationally televised. Like, I'm sorry if y'all are hearing me complain about my first world problems, but it's like, come on, ESPN. You were able to nationally televise Missouri versus Tennessee. You were also able to nationally televise Kansas versus Texas. But you couldn't nationally televise any women's regional volleyball final. And by the way, those were regular season NCAA women's volleyball matches. But you just could not nationally televise a regional final. I'm disappointed, to say the least. But then again, it's ESPN. What can you do? I'm almost as disappointed as when FS1 switched the Nebraska-Creighton volleyball match from FS1 to FS2 just because they had to televise a not-so-important MLB game between the Diamondbacks and the Padres. So, yeah, ESPN, all I want for Christmas is for you to nationally televise regional volleyball championships. Just regional, at least. Good on you. I'll give you credit for televising the regional semifinals and also obviously putting the Final Four, both Final Four matches on ESPN and then the national championship match on ESPN2 for Saturday. But still, it's like, why can't you just make things better for non-ESPN users? I really don't want to waste $9.99 a month. I really, really don't. I don't really think it's necessary just for 3 weeks. I just don't think it's necessary. And I'm obviously not made of money. I don't work at the moment. So, yeah. Again, I know y'all are probably saying this is first world problems, and if you see the timestamps, you could obviously skip this, but yeah, that's just my little gist right there. All right, before I blow a blood vessel, that's going to basically do it for the Sweet 16 and for the Elite 8. We're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial breaky break. When we get back, we're going to go over some notable transfers that have popped in the transfer portal, and we have ourselves that big coaching change in a big-time program, and we also have to preview the Final Four. So keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Pierre Moss, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as The Show That Never Sleeps with Harrison Glazer and Pierre Moss. That show covers everything that is New York sports and New Jersey sports. Then we have Sin City Sports with Cale Henderson. That covers all things Las Vegas sports. And then we have Chi-Town Weekly, which goes on live an hour before this show goes on, with Adam Karnick, which talks all things Chicago sports. But now we are here to the second half of Set Point. Let's get underway. Before we jump on into the Final Four, and me previewing that, I have to go over some of the notable transfers. Like I said, the transfer portal is popping like popcorn at the movies, and it's starting to fill up quite nicely. So I'm just going to limit this to some of the notable transfers that I've seen. And a pair of notable transfers that come from the same school, and I talked about this last week, and now I'm starting to become even more concerned. So 2 more transfers from Missouri have popped up in the transfer portal. The first one was Trista Strasser, who is a middle blocker. She is a junior, so she has 2 years of eligibility left, and she hails from Missouri. While the other one is Riley Buckley, who she's listed as a freshman according to the college volleyball transfers account, Twitter/Instagram, but she's a freshman according to the Missouri volleyball website back in the 2022 roster. So for those that are keeping track, if you all remember last week, I discussed Anna Dixon and Kaylee Cox, the 2 top kill leaders for Missouri entering the transfer portal. Obviously, Dixon is going to be a graduate player as she has 1 year remaining, while Kaylee Cox was a sophomore this year. As for Strasser, she's actually their 3rd kill leader, and Riley Buckley, their setter, is also their 4th kill leader. So, hold on now. I gotta properly do this. Missouri, I'm very concerned for Missouri now. 4 of your top players have entered the transfer portal. 1 being a graduate player, which was probably, it had the same little feel as the Kylie DeBerg effect when she transferred to LSU for beach volleyball and indoor volleyball. And then, but you also have 3 of some of your more youthful players, such as Trista Strasser, who is a junior, I want to say junior, according to the website, according to the volleyball college volleyball transfer portal. And you also have your setter who started practically every match and who was basically the quarterback of your team, both in the transfer portal. So, and you also got to keep in mind, Missouri doesn't have a head coach at the moment, as now you have to start wondering, really? What is going on with Missouri? Like, I one time had a title of the show called The Misery in Missouri. I think that's starting to come back. Now, I obviously want Missouri to do well. I really want Missouri to do well. I wish them nothing but the best. And it looks like Trista Strasser, according to the Missouri website, she was listed as a sophomore this year, so she's going to be a junior upcoming. So she's going to have 3 years of eligibility for the most part, unless she doesn't want to take her COVID year. And then for Riley Buckner, she obviously she was a freshman this season, so she's going to have at least 3, if not 4, years of eligibility left. So for Missouri, I'm very concerned because I said a year or two they were going to be really good, but now I don't know. They're going to have to strike gold when it comes to the transfer portal, and then this also makes me wonder, is anyone else going to transfer from Missouri? Don't get me wrong. Again, I want Missouri to succeed. I really want Missouri to succeed. I think it would be great to have a competitive SEC with them in it. But if you're having your top 4 players transfer, you have to be somewhat concerned. Who's next that's going to transfer? Your libero? Your 5th kill leader who had 88 kills? You have to, again, you really got to be concerned if you're a Missouri fan. If you're a Mizzo fan, you got to be smashing the panic button and wondering who's going to be our new head coach? Who's going to be replacing those 4 players? Are we going to get any transfers? Are we even going to have enough to field a talented team? And more importantly, how are we going to keep up in the SEC? Because Kentucky and Florida, they're going to be returning a majority of their players from this year. Especially for Kentucky, they got Azani Taylor returning. And that young core that Florida has, they return all those players like Merritt Beeson and Alexis Stuckey. Maybe Marina Markova comes back as well. But then you also have other teams that are looking desirable that have like good recruiting classes coming in. Like Georgia could be good. Auburn, they advanced to the round of 32 when nobody expected them to. People could be just looking at them as a possible destination to transfer or to commit back in high school. Tennessee could be bulking up. A lot of these SEC teams could be leveling up. And for Missouri, if they don't do anything soon, they could be in a world of hurt come their future because obviously their season reflected on how they were very young and inexperienced. They didn't have too many breakout wins. And obviously their head coach was given his walking papers at the end of the season. Now, I don't know if that coach had his contract expired at the end of the year, but honestly, you have to be extremely concerned if you're a Missouri fan. Again, I want Missouri to succeed. I want them to actually excel going forward. But if they're losing their top players and they don't have a head coach named, I don't know what else to say for Missouri. It's going to be a bleak future. It's going to be a long year next year. The year after could be longer. And you never know with players right here and now. Like, players could be wanting to like get to another school and, who knows, maybe play professionally sooner rather than later. Like, again, I wish no ill will on Missouri, but this is not looking good for them. This is becoming extremely concerning for the Tigers, especially since the entire SEC is looking rather impressive. LSU looks good. You also have, LSU could return some players. Again, winning is curing everything, and LSU winning an NCAA tournament match, Georgia winning an NCAA tournament match, Auburn winning an NCAA tournament match, Florida and Kentucky advancing to the Sweet 16, that's curing everything. Tennessee was kind of the only odd man out that didn't really win. Oh, yeah, we can't forget Arkansas. Arkansas won an NCAA tournament match, and they had big-time wins over Georgia Tech and Washington. So the only odd man out from the NCAA tournament of the SEC teams that didn't really win an NCAA tournament match was Tennessee. But they gave Purdue all that they could handle, especially since Purdue was fairly young. So if you're Missouri, again, you have to be heavily concerned going forward just because you know that every team in that SEC is going to be improving. So that's basically that for Missouri. And those two notable players, Trista Strasser and Riley Buckley, those are two instrumental players. And I wish those two nothing but the best where they go off to. So another notable player for the second straight week that hit the transfer portal actually comes from another Power 5 conference. This one actually comes from UCLA, and this one just so happens to be Charity Looper. Now, Charity Looper is a fantastic player. She was a very talented outside hitter. She's undersized according to most experts, but she has a cannon for an arm. She has the hops of a kangaroo, and she is just that talented. She and Anna Dodson were the 1-2 punch. Unfortunately for Charity Looper, well, unfortunately for UCLA, Charity is in the transfer portal. And also, Charity Looper did miss some time this season. She missed the first USC match, and she also missed the LMU match, which saw LMU getting swept. Now, I'm hoping she didn't transfer because UCLA had a bad season. I don't want to speculate why she transferred. My guess is maybe because, you got to remember, Mike Seeley stepped down as head coach. So, I'm not saying UCLA is in a world of hurt or a world of trouble, because I'm sure they're going to have, transfers go to their program, because they were one of the first three out when it came to missing the NCAA tournament. First three out of missing the NCAA tournament, and they've probably got a good high school recruiting class coming in for 2023. So I think UCLA is still fine. It's just going to be picking up the pieces with a new head coach, obviously moving on from Mike Seeley, who guided them to an NCAA championship and won said NCAA championship back in 2011 over to now. So I think UCLA is going to be fine, but losing Charity Looper and Anna Dodson. Well, Anna Dodson's a graduate student. Charity is going to be a junior, and she's going to have approximately 3 years of eligibility left due to the COVID season. Most likely 3, unless she doesn't use her COVID season, which basically would give her only 2. So I do wish Charity Looper nothing but the best, and she is a fantastic player, and I'm certain she's going to do big things for whoever lands her. So that's pretty much that for some of the notable transfers in terms of non-Power 5. So I basically had this little segment, or this little tweet thingy, this little tweet for all on other notable players that transferred from the Big Ten. I call it the big time Big Ten players, which I find it rather funny that I call it that, just because I think that's kind of the best thing to call it, the big time Big Ten players transferring. So we had a lot of transfers, and and believe it or not, we actually had 2 late transfers pop up right before I went live. So they all hail from the Big Ten. We'll start with Lily Tessier. Now, she originally hails from Florida State, as she is transferring from Iowa. She's a graduate student. Well, she's going to be a graduate student next year. So whoever is in need of a setter, that's your gal right there. Now, another person that's going to be hitting the transfer portal is Annie Evans. So she's going to be a senior next year, and from what I'm hearing, she is graduating early, but Nebraska doesn't have any scholarships remaining. I could be wrong about that one, but I did get this news early and often. I got this news fairly early, if you ask me, and well, not fairly early, but when it first surfaced, which that was kind of bad news for Pitt, for Nebraska fans, just because that's their setter right there, and she is a darn good setter, and I'm interested to see where Annie Evans goes. I mean, obviously, a team in need of a setter, aka Missouri, definitely would need her. But overall, Annie Evans has entered the transfer portal as she was a junior this year, and she is going to graduate, and she has 2 years of eligibility remaining. And from what I saw, according to Annie Evans, I want to say this was on Instagram. Again, I'm not going to fully quote this. I'm not going to really 110% quote this, but from what I heard is that there weren't any scholarships, as making my way over to the IG right away, and there is no IG because she doesn't have any, but I digress. So overall for Nebraska, it's obviously a tough little loss right there, as she will be graduating from University, and I found her post. She says she'll be graduating from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and she's entered the transfer portal with 2 years of eligibility left. And unfortunately for Nebraska, they do not offer her a graduate program, as she is passionate in pursuing, which has ultimately led her to this decision. This was from her on her Instagram post. She literally said she was graduating early from University of Lincoln, Nebraska, or Nebraska overall. And again, okay, so it wasn't scholarships, but they didn't have the graduate program for Evans, so that's totally understandable. Again, there are bigger things bigger than volleyball in this world, and I wish her nothing but the best, so we'll see where she ends up. And then we also have, hailing from Michigan, Mel Pertovsky. She is a graduate student, and she will be hitting the transfer portal. She is a dynamic right-side player, so whichever school lands her is going to get a big-time player. And in addition, about 20 minutes before I went live, Jess Robinson, Pertovsky's teammate, entered the transfer portal as well. Again, graduate student going to be next year, so both have 1 year of eligibility left, and I imagine they're going to be going to graduate school and wanting to play 1 more year of volleyball before they do what they need to do in the real world, whether it's play professionally or just play in terms of their own, or do whatever they need to do. And then the last notable transfer that's entered the transfer portal is Liz Gregorski, who is an outside/beach volleyball player hailing from Wisconsin. So this is going to be interesting to see where she ends up and if she wants to play indoor or if she wants to play beach. If she wants to play beach, awesome. If she wants to play indoor and beach, awesome. If she wants to just play indoor, awesome. Either way, whoever lands Liz Gregorski is going to be is going to get a big-time player, and honestly, I wish her the best as well. I think she's going to do big things, and who knows where she wants to end up. If she wants to end up at a school that offers indoor and beach, then we'll see her play both. But if she wants to just play beach, then we'll see her on the beach court. And if she just wants to play indoor, then so be it. All right, so that is it for the notable transfers right there. So now we're going to get into some big coaching news. Y'all are probably wondering, well, what's this big coaching news, Teran? We're chomping at the bit here. All right, so the big coaching news that came early this morning of the day of this recording. This is being recorded at 7:27 p.m. Pacific time on December 12th, 2022. But this news came the morning of this day, as Keegan Cook announced that he is departing from University of Washington, as he will be heading down to Minnesota to be the head coach of the Golden Gophers. So as we all know, Hugh McCutcheon was stepping down from his position, and basically that left a big void for the Gophers. Now Minnesota has found their replacement in Keegan Cook. So now there are 2 Cooks in the Big Ten. Go figure. But jokes aside, Keegan Cook is a great fit, and I really thought this was a home run hire. I really thought that Minnesota nailed this hire early and often, and while it is different, and while Keegan is going to have to transition from West Coast to like Midwest, I think this is a great hire just because he did wonders for that Washington program. Remember, Washington didn't miss the NCAA tournament under the watch of Keegan Cook. Obviously, this was a tough year for Washington as they battled injuries and they got off to not the greatest start in terms of wins and losses. But for Keegan Cook, you got to remember, he took Washington to the Final Four back in the spring of 2021, and he almost took them to the Elite Eight last season. Unfortunately, they fell via reverse sweep to Texas, which there's no shame in losing to, especially when you're in Gregory Gymnasium. But I digress. So I think this is a big-time hire for Minnesota, and it really helps Minnesota just because that eliminates their national search going from here all the way to the beginning of August, which I'm sure they would have probably hired earlier before the next volleyball season. So kudos to Minnesota on them nailing the hire and getting Keegan Cook. I really think Keegan Cook is going to do wonders for the Gophers. All right, so there's that right there for Minnesota. But for Washington, this is kind of a big loss for them just because now they are without a head coach. They join UCLA in terms of not having a head coach. And 3 days ago, I actually found this out, that UCLA and Washington are actually not the only ones in the Pac-12 that don't have an NCAA women's volleyball coach. Arizona State actually joins the fray, as they actually made some coaching changes, or their changes to their coaching staff, as the only ones remaining on the Arizona State women's volleyball coaching staff is Carlos Moreno, the associate head coach, and Ryan Leary, the director of operations. Everyone else has been given their walking papers. So obviously Arizona State, when you think of Arizona State, nothing against them, but you don't really see NCAA tournament team. And obviously they're in the Pac-12, which is crowded with a lot of amazing teams, such as USC, Stanford, Washington State, Oregon, Colorado, Utah, which will obviously turn it around. UCLA, they'll turn it around. So for Arizona State, I don't want to say that this will. I don't know the full details, but all I know is that they're conducting a national search on who their next head coach is going to be, and overall, I mean, being the head coach at Arizona State isn't going to be like being the head coach at UCLA or Washington. Like for Arizona State, they obviously have a lot of soul searching to do, and they're going to have to do a lot of picking up the pieces and hoping that their players at the moment don't leave for the transfer portal. So for Arizona State, I'm sure they'll find the head coach that they need, but it's going to be tough. Especially when you're just down to your associate head coach and then your director of operations. They're going to have to conduct a full search for a coaching staff. It's not just going to be a new head coach, unless, of course, they want Carlos Moreno to be the new head coach going forward. But for right now, Arizona State is going to have to pick up the pieces and start rebuilding its coaching staff. And they got to make sure all those players stay happy, otherwise they're not going to be at Arizona State for much longer. And Arizona State's going to be in the same boat as Missouri. All right, so that's that for the Arizona State. And now that I mentioned UCLA, I actually do have one candidate that comes to mind for the UCLA job. And I posted this on Twitter. I think a good candidate for the UCLA job would be Joy Mackenzie Furbringer. Now, you're probably wondering, well, who is that? Well, for starters, she is the wife of Matt Furbringer, the former Stanford national champion in men's volleyball, and obviously the Team USA men's national team assistant coach, and obviously just all-around great associate coach as well. But Joy Mackenzie Furbringer makes a whole lot of sense for UCLA just because she was a part of their coaching staff back from 2010 all the way to 2014, and I think it would benefit her. Now, there are obviously some red flags, but I personally think Joy would be a great coach. The only red flags that I think would get in the way of her coaching is what happened at Long Beach State, where she got her walking papers before her contract ended with Long Beach State, which wasn't her fault. I think that was, and this is no knock on Long Beach State, I think it was kind of Long Beach State who had a false sense of judgment for letting her go midway through the season. I think they should have just let her coach out the remainder of the year, and then just see where they're at in terms of a reevaluation. But Joy Mackenzie Furbringer to UCLA would make a whole lot of sense. Now, obviously, she's the director of the Mizuno Volleyball Club, and her daughter and son both go to school in Manhattan Beach, Miracosta. So I kind of think this would make sense just because I know from Manhattan Beach to UCLA, the campus of UCLA, it is a 30-minute drive, approximately, probably with no traffic. But it kind of just does make sense. I get this feeling that it could happen. If not, we could see Joy Mackenzie Furbringer joining that coaching staff. I mean, I think she's a great coach. I'm being a little biased here, but I really don't think she, being at Long Beach State, did her any justice, just because, obviously, Long Beach State, in her last year, they obviously had to go through the COVID year, which saw Big West not have any sports in terms of the fall. And then that obviously led to players departing here and there. And then obviously you also got to remember that she got fired like midway through Big West Conference play. And also, what people don't forget, however, is that Joy Mackenzie-Furbringer led Long Beach State to an upset win over then number 19 San Diego last season. So for Long Beach State, it's not the fault of Joy Mackenzie-Furbringer, and I think she could get hired at UCLA. I think she's a good candidate. And she also has a championship pedigree, as in addition to being a part of the assistant coach from the UCLA women's volleyball team that won in 2010, she also won a national championship as a player back in '93 for Long Beach State. So I think Joy Mackenzie-Furbringer is definitely a name to keep an eye out for. And if she wants to go apply, and she wants to put her name in the hat for the coaching job, I say she goes for it. But this is just a speculation. I just think it would be a correct decision for her to go for it and for UCLA to consider her. All right, so that's that for the little coaching changes. Now we got to get into the Final Four. So, all right, Final Four preview time. We'll start off with the first Final Four matchup just because it's chronological order. Texas, number 1 overall seed, taking on San Diego, the number 5 overall seed. So for San Diego, this is their first ever national championship. Meanwhile, for Texas, they're trying to win their first national championship since 2012. Here's my thing for San Diego. Well, here's my thing for San Diego, for all the Final Four teams. So, of the Final Four teams, 3 of those teams are looking for their first ever national championship. Texas, on the other hand, they are looking for championship number 4, and they're looking to make the NCAA championship since the spring of 2021, aka the COVID year. So, for Texas, obviously they want redemption from 2 seasons ago, and they obviously want to win their first NCAA championship in over 10 years. And I don't blame them. And they have such a loaded roster. And Logan Eggleston is a very likable player. I really think she is a very talented player, and you gotta love Texas. But here's my thing: the semifinals are being played in Omaha, Nebraska. I did see another volleyball show that basically had this spoiling question, and I'm not trying to stir the pot with this, but who's going to be cheered for the most in Omaha? Obviously, there's going to be Omaha fans, Nebraska fans, and mainly Nebraska fans that love their volleyball. But who, in terms of the Nebraska fans, the Nebraska volleyball fans, who are they going to cheer for the most? Are they going to cheer for the underdogs just because San Diego is the likable underdog? Pitt is fairly likable. Louisville is mostly likable. The only one I don't think is likable, and don't quote me on this, is Texas. And this is no knock on Texas. I know they're the number 1 overall seed, but Texas and Nebraska have had their past matches in the semifinals and finals and NCAA tournament appearances. And for Nebraska fans, if they do go to the Final Four and they see Texas, they're not going to give Texas the warmest welcome. But I will say Texas's fans travel well. Like, Texas has a big fan base in terms of volleyball. I'm not sure how big San Diego's fan base will be, but they better travel well. And heaven knows. Heck, order a charter plane for them and just go up to whatchamacallit. For the students as well. For the students that can make it and for all the fans that can make it, order a charter plane, go over to Omaha, and cheer on your Toreros. All right, now for the actual important part. For the actual preview. San Diego versus Texas. I really think, on paper, Texas looks like the more dominant team. Texas has their 1 loss to Iowa State. San Diego has their 1 loss to Iowa State. San Diego has 1 loss, and that was to Louisville. For Texas, playing Texas is on a whole different level. It's a whole different team when you play Texas. It really, 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 really is. Texas serves so tough. And they don't beat themselves up. They do not make mistakes every so often. They are all business. But so is San Diego. San Diego has a plethora of good hitters. They have a four-headed monster. And this is kind of, and this is no offense to both teams, this is kind of the battle of the transfer teams, as both teams had a good number of players from the transfer portal. So overall, it's going to be a good little matchup right here. I just think, and this is my prediction, I'm going to make predictions as well. I just think Texas gets it done. This is no knock to San Diego. And personally, as a SoCal boy, I want San Diego to win. I think San Diego deserves a championship in something. I know University of San Diego has a rugby championship, and they also have a tennis championship, but I don't know if that's fully in Division I. I saw that the rugby championship came in Division I AA, but I'm not sure about actual NCAA championships. All I just know is that San Diego is such a great story, and San Diego deserves something, but I have to go with Texas here. I really think Texas is the team. I think they are going to be, they're the Giants. They are basically Goliath, and San Diego is David. And for the hopes of San Diego, they're going to have to really serve and pass well. They have to not get dominated on serve-receive. If they get dominated on serve-receive, it's practically going to be a long night for the Toreros. I really think that they do have a good shot, though. I think they have a good shot, but I got Texas winning in 4. Again, I will gladly eat my crow on who wins and who loses. I will gladly eat my crow on who wins or who loses on next week's show, depending on who wins and who loses. But overall, I got Texas winning in 4 over San Diego. I think Texas is going to get a battle. They're definitely going to get a battle from the Toreros, but I just think Texas is ultimately going to come out on top. As for the other semifinal, Louisville versus Pitt. So here's my thing. Pitt is playing some darn good volleyball after their loss to Louisville, but Louisville is playing some really good volleyball, and it's because of Anna DeBeer and Claire Chaussee, and as well as Aiko Jones. That's kind of the three-headed monster right there. And for me, I really don't want to have to pick between Pitt and Louisville. I like both of these programs. I think both of these teams are fantastic. I think both of these teams deserve to be in the semifinals, let alone the final. But only one can advance. The way that Pitt can advance to the final is they need to get a big night from all their big-time players. From Rachel Fairbanks, from Courtney Bazzario. I don't know if Juliana Dalton is playing. I don't think I saw her on the box score, but overall, they need to get big-time players from everybody. Yeah, Juliana Dalton, I don't know if she's injured, but we haven't really seen her, but that's why you have Valeria Vasquez Gomez. That's why you have her. Courtney Bazzario isn't just a one-woman wrecking crew. You also have Valeria Vasquez Gomez, Chiamaka Nwokolo. You have Serena Gray, who stepped up as well. Rachel Fairbanks doubles up as a great setter and pin hitter as well. And then you obviously have to have big games from your passers and servers as well. Again, serving and passing is what's going to be the key for all of these teams in terms of advancing to the national championship. This is going to be really tough to predict a winner between the Cardinals and the Panthers. Oh, and then as for Louisville, again, they're going to have Claire Chaussee come up big as well. Anna DeBeer come up big, and Raquel Lathero. Yes, it's Lathero, not Lazaro. The Z is kind of silent, and it morphs into a TH. Louisville is just going to need to play mainly mistake-free. They can't allow themselves to get off to a slow start. And they could have easily gotten swept by Oregon if it weren't for Oregon's self-inflicted wounds late in set number 1. If Oregon doesn't have those errors, I don't know if Louisville wins that first set. So overall, it's going to be something interesting to see between the Cardinals and the Panthers. The Panthers, on the other hand, they cannot let anything slip by. They cannot leave anything to chance. They have to hold on to any lead possible. Otherwise, they can kiss whatever hope of making the final goodbye. This is going to be a very tough one because Pitt won the first matchup in 5, but Louisville didn't have Anna DeBeer. Louisville won the second matchup in 3, in very convincing fashion, mind you. But this time around, I'm going to take Pitt. I'm going to take Pitt to win in 5. I think Pitt wins it in 5. It's not going to be easy. Again, it's not just going to have to be the Courtney Bazzario show. It's going to have to be the everyone does something show. Otherwise, again, it's not going to look pretty for them. And I really think that Pitt has what it takes. I think they have that it factor. And Courtney Bazzario is a woman on a mission. She could possibly be the AVCA Player of the Year. But it's all going to be said and done on Thursday. But I got Pitt winning in 5. And then if those two manage to make the national championship, I got Texas winning in 4 over Pitt. As much as I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I just think Texas is just way too good. You see their firepower on their team. They've got lots of talent. They serve tough. They crush the ball so easily, especially in the middle. Shout out to Asia O'Neal and Kayla Cafey. And their libero, Zoe Fleck, she is just outstanding. I just don't see how any team remaining in this tournament can slow that down. Especially since all 3 of the opponents had to grind it out in 5 sets. Although Louisville had the home crowd, and they also won in convincing fashion in that 5th set over Oregon. San Diego kind of had to grind it out against Stanford, and then Pitt had to outlast Wisconsin in a mini marathon on the road. But overall, I have Texas winning the whole thing. I know listeners are going to be like, oh my God, Teran, you're such a hypocrite saying you want to see San Diego win, but you're a hypocrite because you have Texas winning it all. Texas is just so talented. It's just so tough to go against them. Again, as much as I personally want to see a first-time NCAA champion. But I just think Texas is just so good. They're very talented all across the board. Like, they hardly have any weaknesses. Try to take away Logan Eggleston, Maddie Skinner. Try to take away Maddie Skinner, Molly Phillips, Asia O'Neal, Kayla Cafey. The list goes on and on. Serving-wise, Zoe Fleck, there were only like 6 or so points that Zoe Fleck served that weren't a point for Texas. Once she gets to that service line, you have to have that perfect pass, perfect set, perfect swing, perfect placement, perfect everything. Because if you're not perfect against Texas, you're going to be at their mercy, and you're going to crack like an egg. So, overall, that's my little preview for the Final Four. Again, my Final Four is Texas Pitt, and then I just have Texas winning it in 4 sets, if that just so happens to be my projected final. If it comes down to another team, if it just happens to being like Louisville, San Diego, or San Diego Pitt, or Texas Louisville, then I'll give a different prediction. We could also see history when it comes to the first NCAA women's volleyball coach becoming an NCAA women's volleyball champion. We do have Jennifer Petrie of San Diego and Danny Busboom Kelly representing Louisville as the head coach, as both those coaches could make history, but in order to get to the final, they have to win their way first. All 4 of these teams are deserving of the NCAA championship, and it's just going to be a bummer to see which team falls, just because I'm going to be sad regardless of who loses in what match, so that's that. But on that note, that is going to do it for my little preview of the Final Four. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Let's drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, in the wee hours of the morning, or anytime, any place, I appreciate you. Shout out to Adam Karnick and Mike Pat for popping in for a little bit. I really do appreciate you two coming in to the Spreaker chat room. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy the NCAA Women's Volleyball semifinals. Regardless of whether who wins or who loses, I'm here to have a good time. I'm here to enjoy some semifinals. I don't want to see any sweeps. I want to see some barn burners. I will see you all Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, and I'll see you all next week to break down the NCAA Women's Volleyball Championship. Peace!